So this Healthcare Expo, which takes place every year here in Taiwan, is absolutely massive. There's actually all kinds of technology in this place. You got this iPreg sperm sorting chip. I have to say, this is a very high-tech, slightly strange Healthcare Expo. Inside all this technology that is being promoted and that's on display here at the moment are microchips, semiconductors. They are very, very important for the functioning of any form of modern technology, and most of those semiconductors are made right here in Taiwan.
这是我们的 biosensor。我们公司呢是在开发一个新型的半导体声音晶片，希望可以预测每一个人的健康的状况。产业一直是台湾非常重视的一个很重点的产业，而且它是我们台湾之光嘛。
Advanced semiconductors, or microchips, are in everything we use. If it lights up or beeps, chances are there's a chip in it. They're the lifeblood of the modern economy, and the industry is now worth a staggering $500 billion. These microchips contain a complex set of electrical switches, or transistors, that tell the equipment they're inside how to function. 60 years ago, semiconductors had less than 100 transistors. What Taiwan can do today better than anyone else is cram more than 100 billion transistors into a silicon chip the size of a fingernail. The Taiwanese government has strategically invested in the industry for decades by funding multi-billion-dollar chip factories, or fabs. Taiwan now produces more than 90% of the world's most advanced microchips. We were able to see one part of that production process in a factory where silicon wafers are painstakingly cleaned and prepared. So we're having to keep our voices very low. We're not supposed to be talking in this clean zone at all. And every stage is very, very serious and precise. And they're saying that's not only for the protection of their jobs, for the protection of this company, for the protection of the industry, also potentially for the protection of the entire country. Taiwan's dominance in the industry creates a form of economic defense against potential invaders, like China. This protection is known as the Silicon Shield.
So this is our showroom.
Taiwan deliberately built this silicon shield. During the 1970s and 80s, the Taiwanese government began bringing back engineers who'd been working in Silicon Valley in the US, including Min Woo, founder and CEO of Macronix, who provide microchips to Sony and Nintendo.
When I started, this is the most important part of my company.
I recognize these. Nintendo, I used to have one of these guys.
Nintendo.
You're responsible for my wasted childhood.
Is that right?
How many semiconductors do you make a year?
Let's use in the last 2 years, I can say is we are shipping about 30 billion units.
Wow. And where is it that you're selling them to?
So most of the product may be shipped to China.
China remains the manufacturing capital of the world, and that makes the Chinese the biggest customers of Taiwan's chips. What would it mean to the world if this industry shut down, if there was a disruption to this supply chain?
I would say is the economy is heavily dependent on semiconductor today. If we have the disruption of the supplying, of course, nobody can figure out what's going to happen. In my opinion, the whole world will be in deep shape.
The greatest threat to Taiwan right now is a possible invasion by China. Chinese President Xi Jinping sees Taiwan as a rebellious province, which should belong to China. He's made it clear his goal is to take over Taiwan.
祖国完全统一的历史任务一定要实现，也一定能够实现。
He's sending record numbers of fighter jets into Taiwan's airspace. This has ramped up tensions between China and the US, who support Taiwan.
The friendship between the people of Taiwan and America is a matter of profound importance to the free world, and it is critical to maintain economic freedom, peace, and regional stability.
We once again find ourselves in a world where democracy is under threat.
As the question of whether China will invade Taiwan becomes more and more pressing, volunteer militia groups are running training sessions for citizens who don't want to wait to see if the Silicon Shield will or won't work.
OK 啊，对，不好意思，好 OK， 对，好，那我们做慢的，没关系没关系。第二远就 cover 那个角落。
台湾准备好了吗？
你说人民吗？
没有。
没有，还没有。
大手排列，有人请进去。
This is extremely chaotic. I have to say it's not exactly Navy SEALs level of preparation here. But, I mean, obviously these guys have never been in a military situation before. They're doing the absolute best they can.
好。
As Taiwan lags behind China's military might, China is also working to undermine the Silicon Shield by building out their own industry and trying to lure over valuable Taiwanese workers. In fact, they're eyeing billions of dollars in investments across the industry to become more self-sufficient. We met an engineer who moved to China because the temptation of higher pay was too hard to turn down. He's since returned to Taiwan, and we agreed not to use his real name out of fear for potential blowback from his employer. Are there a lot of Taiwanese engineers who also, like you, went over to mainland China?
应该从我知道的，应该陆陆续续非常多。
Can you tell me what the working conditions are in mainland China compared to here in Taiwan?
整个 total package 大概应该是有将近台湾这边的3倍以上。
I mean, there are Taiwanese people, obviously, who see the semiconductor industry as a point of solid protection for this island. When you tell them that you've gone to work in China and to help develop their industry, how do you explain that?
我曾经的确也有觉得说，如果真的去帮助到让敌人壮大，然后削弱自己的这个实力那这个的确是有一些感到真的惭愧的地方那当然最后比较能够说服是，毕竟在这个我们不算是在最前端的那个半导体技术这一块所以就变成说，这个他们追上的速度其实也不会输给我们
With China pushing further into the chips industry, Taiwanese legislators like Wang Dingyu are trying to figure out how to use policy to fight back.
一波烂北哇！苹果如果把手机移到印度去做的话，我们马上对中国出口搞不好减20%。
He advocates for an independent Taiwan and is sanctioned by the Chinese government. Taiwan might have the advantage right now in the semiconductor industry, but there's a lot of very smart people in China. Is it not inevitable that at some point they will catch up and take over, and then at some point you won't be the center of this industry?
Every country try to catch up with the needs because the modern manufacturing need these chips. So we need to enhance our own strengths in this business.
Wang acknowledges that countries like China will develop their own chips. He's now promoting policies that would allow Taiwanese companies to manufacture some advanced chips abroad, while keeping the most cutting edge to themselves.
If China can manufacture some level of chips, Taiwan, we can approve some laboratory. They can go to China to manufacture the same products they have, but we provide better, cheaper products over there. We call it let a tiger to compete with those cats.
Because the whole advanced chip industry is centered in Taiwan, even allies like the US are vulnerable to a bottleneck in the supply chain.
If you're looking to buy a car, you may find yourself having a bit of trouble.
In 2021, a chip shortage led to the global car industry losing an estimated $210 billion in revenue and contributed to widespread inflation. The US is now trying to take control of the chip game. Both the Trump and the Biden administrations put massive trade restrictions on China, blocking them from access to essential equipment needed to make advanced chips. President Biden signed the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, which allocates $50 billion to semiconductor manufacturing and research. The bill was sponsored by Senator Mark Warner. the US is pouring billions and billions and billions of dollars into the semiconductor industry here. Don't you think that by pushing to build chips here and to kind of de-globalize the semiconductor supply chain, that you're making Taiwan less safe and that you're opening it up for invasion?
And I think it would be, frankly, security-wise, economic-wise, completely irresponsible if the United States didn't have a secure supply chain for semiconductor chips.
But is it realistic that, you know, America does catch up and is able to make enough chips that it needs for itself?
Absolutely. If you simply look at the announcements of the Taiwanese company TSMC, the Korean company Samsung, companies like Intel, Micron, the announcements since the chip bill has become law of the land in America, there have been announcements totaling more than $100 billion in investments in this country on supply chain for chips.
Those investments started rolling in shortly after Biden signed the CHIPS Act. This included Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, the world's biggest chip provider, which announced it would be opening a factory in Arizona.
American manufacturing is back, folks. American manufacturing is back. Some of the companies here today are customers that are going to buy these chips made here. Some are suppliers that are going to help make these chips. And they all depend on a strong supply chain. We're the United States of America, and there is virtually nothing beyond our capacity if we work together.
We are not naive. We are leading in this business, but people try to compete with Taiwan or China try to surpass Taiwan. It's happening. We cannot sit there to wait. Even United States, they try to manufacture their own chips on their own. And then the importance, the value of Taiwan will be nothing.
What is your best argument to Americans for caring about what happens to Taiwan? What would you tell them is at stake here?
If a war happens in Taiwan Strait, the global economy will be destroyed. That means money in your pocket will be vanished.